zone. Like being proactive versus reactive is a step.
Yeah, it's a big step. So we're joined here with a great individual. Ari Jacobs is in the house. A individual who has incredible experiences, somebody with a lot of insight, and someone that can really share some perspective. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with Ari on the phone, and we had a really deep conversation about what is missing. So Ari, tell us a little bit about yourself and your perspective as to what do you think is missing today.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. And running this whole program on Tisha B'Av can't be easy. I already feel it on my side, of the head. I just want to say that I'm like Shragi. I don't feel like I'm qualified in such a public forum, but I can only give my experience, strength, and hope that I've had myself. I usually like to say that I am the, ultimate, mother or father's, worst nightmare. I come from a wonderful family. I went to mainstream yeshivas. I had a wonderful, fantastical upbringing from everybody. No abuse, no trauma, and yet absolutely no connection to Yiddishkeit. I grew up with such wonderful people, and, I can say that now in advance. I would say at a young age, I did a lot of motion sometimes. I was the type of person that never just, you tell me to do something, sure, no problem. I was good in academic. I was academically fine. I really had everything else going for me. I just didn't know why I was doing anything. And, and unfortunately, when you have questions and you have these types of lack of understanding, by 12, 13, I remember I put on a hat. I think it was off maybe 10 days later. There was, I put it on, I did it off, took the pictures, it was no problem. So it came to a point at a very young age, 12 and 13, where I just didn't feel it. And, when it came to a point of just, I don't want to do it, and at the same time, so when I was in yeshiva, whatever, if this is the rules, these are the rules, sure, I'll do it. But there was nothing there. There's no heart. There's nothing. And so that means when I wasn't around any person that says A, B, and C, so I didn't do A, B, and C, and I never felt it. As anyone at a young age, it snowballs, and over time. And unfortunately, I spent a lot of my younger years completely off Yiddishkeit, and I really had no interest. I had no, it came to a point where I reached an age where I decided I can tell everybody, I'm done, it's good. You keep up a semblance when we have a wedding and all this, of course, no problem. But this wasn't for me. I moved out of my house, and, this was all my teenage years, and I wanted to experience the world, go out and find, meaning. Yeah, there was a meaning search, I always used to say, I never was an atheist per se. I knew there was a God up there, but you're up there, I'm down here. Let's carry on.
Right, we're both good.
We're both good, exactly. You do your things, I'll do my things, and I remember actually. So I followed this for a while, and this is who I was until I was brought to a fantastic yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael called Kesher. I was 20 years old. I spent a long time. I was 20 years old, and that's where I was able. It's funny. Kesher's tagline is the connection to reconnect. Which is the essence, and I guess we'll go through exactly what connections I'm looking for here. But that's where I finally started to find meaning and purpose in life. And, Baruch Hashem, just to even do a flash forward before we go back, I'm married for 10 years, 3 children, 3 amazing children, one on the way. I couldn't be more grateful, to Hashem Yisbarach and to my family and to everything that I have. And, and because that does give me a little bit of a unique experience to see the in-between, the back and forths.
Let me ask you this, because I'm fascinated by this whole thing. And I think what you went through is first of all, I give you a lot of credit for being able to come back and talk about it. Lots of people go through these things and all of a sudden there's a lost decade somewhere, right? That gets whitewashed out of the resume somehow. No. I was doing like kavanas in the corner somewhere. Nobody knew.
I had to ask a lot of permissions.
Right, lots of permissions. And then the kids will get married in 20 years. Usually there's a lot of that. But so your bravery is, I'm sure, appreciated by the audience, and more importantly, mentioned rewarded by the Ribono Shel Olam.
Amen.
Do you find this is a common epidemic? People that are raised in fine, great homes, everything is fine, but Yiddishkeit becomes sort of a game of motions, and at some point they go, yeah, I get it, I'm not scared, Hashem sure is not going to zap me, I'm not mad, just keep it, I'm good. Do you find that to be like a common theme?
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Even when I was off and while I've been on, the Shabbos tables and this, and I do find this type of topic, it invigorates because I like to see both sides. Unfortunately, yes, I find quite often you have the people that just when you even say, what do you think your purpose is here? And they'll just say, I don't want to find out. Why should I say, I don't want to learn what the extra stuff is. I'll just do the X, Y, and Z, and I don't want to get involved in the nitty gritty, because then I might have to do more. I might have to do this. In other words, sometimes we have such a lack of connection that we don't even want to connect. Which is a missing. And I find, my Rebbe, Michal Shon of the Keshe Yeshiva, he shared with me a story of, obviously he has tons of these calls all the time, how a father, called him up and said, Rabbi, I don't understand, my son just doesn't want to put on tefillin, and, I keep telling him, it's a minute, just put it on, take it off. What's the problem? So my Rebbe talked back to him and said, maybe he doesn't want to do something that doesn't have any meaning to it. Maybe if you don't have a meaning, you don't have a semblance, if we are not giving over a connection, if I tell my kid, put it on, take it off, that's all you got to do, of course he's not going to do that. How can he connect to that something?
Right.
I'm not giving him something to connect to.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
We as a community, sometimes we take for granted, we assume that everybody is connected, and you go, like you said, you go through the system. Like, what do you mean? How could you even not be connected when you went to this yeshiva and that yeshiva? There are many parents that are struggling with their kids in that system. Like, but how do you make it more meaningful as a parent? Meaning, in retrospect, nothing, from your parents, but you as a parent or as a yeshiva. How do you make it meaningful to a kid 13 years old who, besides for his, baseball, Game Boy? I mean, I'm dating myself here. Whatever.
Game Boy.
You get what I'm saying?
Game Gear.
Game Gear, right?
You clearly don't live in America, that's for sure.
Again, it's a wonderful question, and obviously it's something that I've thought on a little bit. I want to share, I guess, how to put it into the perfect words from again another Rebbe of mine, Rabbi Ephraim Stauber, who was first a Rebbe in Kesher, and then he actually moved on to something. He has something called Bitachon Boot Camp, which is basically a painless way how to reconnect. He does a boot camp for Bitachon, and he really takes these concepts. Basically, what he says, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, is that in order to build a relationship, a connection, you need positive experiences, right? Positive experience create trust. When you ever look at a relationship, the more trust you have, the stronger relationship. The less trust, the less relationship you have. And the way to build trust is through a positive experience. It's funny you mentioned the parents and maybe even the yeshivas, and it's something that actually is a little bit on my head. And if you don't mind, I would like to say, it's something that also I was looking, Tzvi Glock Amudim says this a lot also. And here, as somebody who was a kid myself, a lot of times children have a lot of questions. We have a lot of thoughts. And you know what? A lot of times they seem not to fall in line with what we would call, straightforward mainstream Yiddishkeit. I would beg chinuch and the parents to always create an open line of communication, to say, you can always speak to me about anything.
Yeah.
There is no taboo. There may be, it's not the right time. Sure, let's talk about it at a different time. Maybe don't use those words. Fine, you have sensibilities. There is no taboo subject. It doesn't matter what it is, because if a child has a question, and if he feels like if I go to my yeshiva, they'll throw me out. I go to my parents, they'll tell me, what am I talking about? They'll throw me. He'll find an answer, or she'll find an answer. And you don't want to know where they're going to find those answers. Yeah. And they will follow those answers.
Absolutely. I think your points are so well taken, which is, if you really believe at the end of the day that we are the luckiest nation, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in relation to Him, is the ultimate, to have fear and to have the whole, things are bad going to happen to you, to have the whole, you can only ask these things, to start cutting everybody off in every single angle, it's not consistent with, we've got a bag of gold.
Right.
It's not consistent with, we're sitting on a treasure. Let me ask you this, because time is short, and we appreciate you being here. What was the moment that you said to yourself, I'm coming back? What was the insight? What happened?
So, Baruch Hashem, I had a lot of, this question I figured would come up. We had a lot of questions. And so I actually...
Rabbi Ginniger didn't give you the insights
the insights,
before
yeah.
we had, he shared the questions.
Baruch Hashem. Actually, there's a moment that I think would delve into actually the parent relationship. It's funny, this I wasn't yet there to jump onto Yiddishkeit, but this is what suddenly changed my perspective overall. It's funny. It's a deeply personal story, and I had to ask my mother a bunch of times. There's only one or two people.
It's just us on the. There's nobody here.
Excellent.
Don't worry about the cameras. There.
Close my eyes.
I just realized that we're about a half hour left to the fast, and people have tons of things to do.
Yeah, everyone's very busy right now, not eating.
Excellent. I was about, I think, 18 or 19 at the time, and I already spent a few years off. And I was with a bunch of friends and actually mentors. They weren't even religious. I had one or two religious mentors, but mostly were non-religious, just in life, where I was going. As I said, I wanted to experience life anyway, without the Yiddishkeit. And we were celebrating a momentous moment in my life. And, we all got together and we were sitting around. And the way that you celebrate is really you get around, you just talk about life and you talk about people and you talk about, people, you talk about, what has happened. And so I remember it was a celebration. So my mentors, they asked me, should we invite your parents, yes or no? And I said, at that time we still weren't, should I say, from my side, weren't very close. And I said, no, thank you. This is me. This is my moment. Okay. Of course, good people as they are, they invited them anyway. And I remember sitting around, we're all in a circle, and my parents walk in, and I was just a little, it's my party, don't worry about it, it's okay, brush it off my shoulder. And so, my parents sit down, and so we go around, and we're all talking, and we're sharing, and we're, sharing experiences. And finally, at the end, my mother, who a wonderful person, and I love very much, and she was, very emotional, and I can understand, this moment. And here I am, I've reached a moment in my life where I've become more of a mensch, for lack of a better word. And she gets up, she goes, I want to speak. Again, I'm a little bit like, I agree, but, so everybody speak. So I'm like, so first of all, she goes around the room, she says, thank you, like a good curse to everybody that's there, and she speaks a little bit about that. And then she turns to me and she goes, Ari, I want to share with you, something that's been going on for the past 5 years. Every single night when I go to bed and I daven to Hashem, and I say, Hashem, I beg of you, protect Ari. Take care of Ari. I don't care if he never wants to see me again. I don't care if he'll never love me, if he'll never want to see me, if he doesn't want to be around me. Shoin, I beg of you, take care of him. Let him grow up to be a good Jewish person. I was sitting there. This is the person I didn't want to be around. This is the person I didn't want near me right now. I couldn't fathom how much, love. And again, a child, unfortunately, is born without the understanding of what a parent does for them. I had what you would call in America that glass-shattering moment, where I looked at my mother and I saw a whole new person. And I had that connection. All of a sudden, there was an intense, I felt the experiences, all of my resentments that I built up on my not being able to perceive what parents truly were, got literally washed away at that moment.
Wow.
And, that was the beginning of being able to build a relationship.
Wow.
And the whole point, I believe, is once you build a relationship with people, you can build a relationship with Ribono Shel Olam.
Wow.
You can imagine.
Wow, what a story. That was great.
As we're nearing the end of Tisha B'Av, can you imagine as a parent what the Ribono Shel Olam is thinking every day?
Yeah. Ari, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for parents for raising you. We appreciate them. Thank you on behalf of Klal Yisrael.
Thank you so much for having
really,
me.
that was really powerful. And your mother sounds like an incredible, and your father, I'm sure, as well.
Amen.
Sounds like incredible people. Ari, listen, your name, Ari, with what your name and your koichos are, I'm sure you put them through more than the show. But you know what, I'll tell you a secret? I put my parents through the worst also. So just letting you know. We should all be exactly. We should all be the best, and our kids should give us more of an easy time than what we put our parents through. Amen. What an incredible story, what an incredible person. And this, I think, what a way to sort of begin the end of the show here. We've got about 10 minutes left, so stick with us to the end if you want. You're welcome to as we start to come to the end of Tisha B'Av. And we're going to wrap up a little bit of all the ideas that we've heard right now.
But one thing that struck me about Ari, first of all, how honest, honesty was.
Yeah.
But also, I feel that on some level, parents that are watching in the audience, and even people Ari's age when he, 12, 13, first of all, to know that, like, there's a connection to be had, and it's not out there in the world. Eventually you end up realizing that the connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu is in our community, is in Torah mitzvahs. But also to know that, that to relate it to how Kadosh Baruch Hu looks at his children.
Yeah. Yes.
And, and to know that if he was sitting around in this room, which he is, and he would say to us between our eyes, protect him, meaning I can't go to bed at night not knowing that you're protected.
Yeah, there's no question. I completely agree. What really struck me from what he said, I think, is something that all of us have to really take very seriously, which is it feels sometimes that when we raise kids, whether you're in chinuch or you're your parents, we're so worried that they're not going to do everything that we only focus on what they do. And we stop thinking about how they feel. And when you look at a kid that does more, you're like, wow, the kid's doing great. And he cannot feel one thing about it. He can literally be doing everything and feeling nothing. And he's the better kid. And you take another kid who's not going to do anything without asking, and we go, whoa, come on. And you can sort of size people up by how they look, by how they're dressed, by what they do. And what you do is a manifestation of what you think sometimes. And sometimes what you do is not a manifestation of what you think. It's a manifestation of not wanting to get in trouble. And we sometimes are so busy that we don't look deeper into each kid and go, wait a second, that kid's doing stuff, but he doesn't know what he's doing. So yeah, it's great. He's in 8th grade. But what if he's second year out of high school? What if he's 28? He's going to wake up one morning and go, what am I doing this for?
Right.
And we got him at 15. We got him at 12. And as opposed to sort of chalking up another win, we slow down and go, it's not enough. If we've got the truth, if we've got the best stuff in the world, it's not enough to settle on this is the motions that someone does.
Right. You know, we had you're reminding me now, we had a boy I was teaching in the yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. Boy came